I used to think love would announce itself, like a thunderclap, loud and clear, impossible to miss. But with Zayan, it never happened like that. With him, it crept in silently. Soft. Slow. Dangerous. Zayan was my best friend. We met in high school and clicked instantly. Me, the quieter, more observant one. Him, all charm and chaotic energy. He lit up every room, every hallway, every rooftop we ever sneaked onto late at night. And I followed. Always followed. Not because I was weak, but because I was already his long before I understood what that meant. We had this stupid game. Every time we were alone, one of us would say, "So? Who's going to make the first move?" Then we'd both laugh like it was a joke. But it wasn't. God, it never was. Late nights on the couch, his head on my shoulder, his fingers grazing mine. Movie nights that turned into silent stares. Hugs that lasted 2 seconds too long. It was always on the edge of something. Something real. Something dangerous. But neither of us ever said it. Neither of us dared. Zayan would smirk and say, "I bet you dream about me." And I'd scoff, "Please. Don't flatter yourself." But I did. Every night. It was easier to pretend. Safer. Because saying it out loud would risk everything. Our friendship, our comfort, the fragile world we'd built around our secret. So we stayed in that no man's land, full of stolen glances and swallowed confessions. But eventually, pretending wasn't enough for him. It was a Saturday night when it shifted. We were at a mutual friend's party, surrounded by people who didn't matter. I was drinking cola, he was drinking gin. I was avoiding the crowd, he was being swallowed by it. Then I saw her, Sana. Pretty. Confident. The kind of girl who didn't have to ask twice for attention. Zayan was with her, too close, whispering something in her ear that made her laugh. I watched from the corner, stomach tight. That familiar heat rising in my chest. Not desire, but jealousy. It burned cruelly. I told myself to walk away, to stop watching. But I couldn't. And then it happened. He kissed her. Right there, in front of everyone. I didn't even realize I'd dropped my glass until it shattered at my feet. He saw me. His eyes locked with mine while his lips were still on hers. Something flickered across his face. Regret? Guilt? Panic? I didn't care. I turned and walked out, my pulse pounding louder than the music inside. He chased after me, calling my name. I didn't stop. I couldn't. The world was spinning, and for the first time, I hated him. When he finally caught up to me outside, breathless, I didn't give him a chance to speak. "So, was that the move you were waiting to make?" I spat, voice shaking. He stared at me like I'd slapped him. "It's not what it looked like." "Oh, really?" I laughed bitterly. Because from where I was standing, it looked a hell of a lot like you finally made a choice. His silence was louder than any answer. And in that moment, something snapped inside me. Something old and tired and wounded. I wasn't angry because he kissed a girl. I was angry because he kissed someone, anyone, who wasn't me. Because all this time, we danced around each other like cowards. We built tension like it was foreplay, never letting it out. We fought about who would make the first move like it was funny, like it was light. But it wasn't. Not to me. I'd been in love with Zayan for years. And maybe, just maybe, he'd been in love with me too. But fear was louder than love. He reached for me then, grabbing my wrist. "Ayan, wait. I didn't mean." "You never do," I said, pulling away. "That's the problem." I left him standing there under the porch light, shadows slicing across his face. For the first time, I walked away not because I was scared, but because I was tired. Tired of waiting. Tired of pretending. Tired of loving someone who only loved me in silence. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling, listening to the buzz of unread messages on my phone. All from him. We used to argue about who would make the first move. Now I knew the answer. Neither of us had the guts. But he had the audacity to move on. And I had the pain to prove I'd stayed. Days turned into weeks, and I didn't speak to Zayan. Not a word. Not a text. Not a glance. He tried, in the beginning, voice messages, half-written apologies, old photos sent with captions like, "Remember this?" But I deleted them all. I wasn't interested in nostalgia. I was trying to forget. That kiss with Sanaa had broken something I wasn't sure could be repaired. Not because it was betrayal in the traditional sense, we weren't dating. But because it proved something ugly. Zayan would rather kiss a stranger than admit he wanted me. And I was done playing games. So I started seeing someone else. His name was Rahil, a soft-spoken artist with warm eyes and calloused hands that knew how to hold me without questions. He wasn't Zayan, and that was the point. With Rahil, there were no arguments, no history of flirtation laced with fear, no late-night promises that led nowhere. There was only calm. But even calm can feel like a lie when your heart's still burning for someone else. One night, Rahil was sketching on my bed, humming something soft. I was scrolling mindlessly through my phone when Zayan's name lit up on the screen again. "I'm outside." I froze. Rahil noticed. "Everything okay?" I nodded too quickly. "Yeah. Just spam." I stepped outside barefoot. Zayan was leaning against the gate, hoodie up, eyes tired. The moment I saw him, my chest ached in a way Rahil never made it ache. "You shouldn't be here," I said coldly. "I know." He paused. "But I had to see you." "You kissed her," I reminded him, voice flat. "I know," he said again, softer this time. "I needed to make it stop." "Make what stop?" "The feelings. For you." His voice cracked like old wood. "But it didn't work." I should have walked back in, slammed the door in his face. But instead, I stood there like a fool, heart wide open, bleeding all over again. "What do you want, Zayan?" He didn't answer. Just stepped forward and pulled me into a hug I didn't return. "I miss you," he whispered. "You miss control," I snapped, pulling away. "You miss the safety of knowing I'll always be here, waiting." "That's not fair." "Neither was watching you kiss someone else," I shot back. "Neither was choosing cowardice over truth." We stood in silence, our breaths clouding between us. "Do you still want me?" he asked suddenly. The question hit like a punch to the throat. Did I? Yes. But wanting someone who hurt you isn't love, it's addiction. Still, I didn't move when he leaned in. Didn't stop him when his lips brushed mine, slow and trembling, as if seeking forgiveness through contact. And God help me, I kissed him back. We didn't speak as we stumbled into my bedroom, past Rahil's forgotten sketchpad, into sheets that hadn't known Zayan's touch in months. It was fast. Desperate. All tongue and teeth and aching need. I hated him for being so good at it. For knowing every inch of me like muscle memory. For making me feel alive again. Afterward, we lay in silence. Our skin still touching, our thoughts worlds apart. "I'm still with her," he admitted. My heart dropped. "I wanted to end it," he said quickly. "I came here to. I didn't plan for this." I sat up, pulling the blanket with me. "You're unbelievable." "I'm sorry," he said, his voice hollow. "You don't get to be sorry and selfish at the same time." Zayan looked at me then, like he finally saw the cost of what we'd done. The mess we'd made. The people we'd hurt. "I'll fix it," he whispered. But I didn't believe him. He left before sunrise. No goodbye. No kiss. Just the soft thud of the front door closing. When I turned around, Rahil was standing in the hallway, barefoot, holding his sketchpad like a shield. His eyes didn't ask questions. They already knew the answers. "I'm sorry," I said, barely able to meet his gaze. He nodded once. "I hope it was worth it." Then he left. And just like that, I had no one. Zayan had kissed me, slept with me, lied to Sanaa, betrayed Rahil. And still, nothing was certain. Not even us. I curled up in bed that morning, replaying everything. The way he touched me. The way I let him. The way I kept confusing pain with passion, chaos with love. He used to tease me about who would make the first move. But now I realized, he only moves when it's too late. There's a particular kind of silence that comes after betrayal, not empty, but thick, loud, heavy, the kind that sits in your chest like concrete. That was the silence I lived in after Rahil walked out. He hadn't shouted. He hadn't cried. Just looked at me with a kind of quiet devastation that made my heart feel like it had been turned inside out. I broke something beautiful, not because I didn't care, but because I was still chasing a version of Zayan that probably never existed. I didn't hear from Rahil after that. No messages. No second chances. Just absence. But Zayan, he was everywhere. Liking old photos on Instagram. Sending half-finished texts. Driving past my place and then pretending it was a coincidence. He'd broken up with Sanaa, quietly, without drama, but hadn't said a word to me about it. I only found out through mutual friends. When I finally confronted him, it wasn't planned. I didn't even mean to be at the event. It was a birthday party for one of our old college friends. I'd only gone because I couldn't stand the silence anymore. Zayan saw me from across the lawn. His whole body tensed. Like a guilty dog. He walked over slowly, like he didn't know whether to hug me or run. "You look good," he said. "Don't," I replied. "Don't act like we're fine." He swallowed hard. "Can we talk?" We ended up in a dark corner near the back fence, surrounded by fairy lights and the sound of fake laughter echoing from the party. "You left," I said flatly. "I know. You broke up with her, and you didn't tell me." "I was going to." "Bullshit," I snapped. "You weren't going to do anything. That night meant something to me, Zayan. And you ran." He rubbed the back of his neck, eyes darting away like they always did when he was cornered. "I panicked," he said. "I didn't know how to face you. Or Sanaa. Or myself." I stepped closer. "You had a choice. To be honest. To be brave. And you chose to hide. Again." He looked at me, finally, and his voice cracked. "I love you, Ayan. I always have." I froze. There it was, the confession I'd waited years to hear. And instead of relief, I felt exhausted. "You say that," I whispered, "but you only say it when it's convenient. When everything's already broken." I was scared. "We all are," I snapped. "But some of us still show up." He reached for my hand, but I pulled back. "Do you even know what you want? Or do you just want me to keep orbiting around you, waiting for you to decide?" Zayan's face twisted in pain. "I want you. That's it. Just you." I laughed bitterly. "No, you want the version of me that never says no. The one who forgives everything. Who sleeps with you at 2 a.m. and pretends it means nothing in the morning." His silence was answer enough. We stood there for what felt like hours. The party behind us faded. It was just us, like it always had been, caught between almost and never. "You hurt me," I said finally. "And I let you." Zayan's voice was barely audible. "I'm sorry." I believed him. But I also knew sorry wasn't enough. The next morning, I sat on my bedroom floor and stared at an old photo of us, arms slung around each other, grinning like idiots. We looked so happy. So easy. So unaware of the storm we'd become. That night, my phone buzzed at 3 a.m. Voice message from Zayan. I hesitated, thumb hovering over the play button. Then I hit it. His voice came through, sleepy and raw. "I know I don't deserve another chance. I know I've hurt you more than I've ever hurt anyone. But if there's even a small part of you that still wants me, I'm ready to make the first move. If it's not too late." My chest tightened. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that love could rise from this wreckage. That two broken people could still find something real between the pieces. But I didn't press reply. Not yet. Because maybe the biggest move wasn't his confession. Maybe it was finally choosing myself. Zayan's voice message sat in my inbox like a loaded gun, quiet but threatening, dangerous in the way hope always is. I'm ready to make the first move. If it's not too late. The old me, the boy who spent years tangled in his arms, waiting for love dressed as friendship, would have called him back instantly. Would have clung to those words like they were salvation. But I wasn't that boy anymore. 4 days, I said nothing. I walked around in a haze, questioning everything. Not just what we were, but who I had become while loving him. I didn't eat much. I didn't sleep well. But I thought. Deeply. Painfully. What I realized scared me more than any heartbreak ever had. I still loved him. But I wasn't sure I trusted him with that love anymore. I saw Zayan a week later. Not because I called him, but because he showed up, again. I was sitting at a rooftop cafe, drinking bitter coffee, pretending to be fine, when his shadow fell across my table. "I didn't think you'd be here," he said quietly. "I didn't think you'd be this bold," I replied, not looking up. He sat anyway. "I meant what I said," he told me. "I want to be with you." I studied him. His eyes were tired, but clear. His hands shook slightly as he reached for the edge of the table. There was no cocky smile this time. No teasing. No jokes. Just him, raw, uncertain, vulnerable. "I'm not a second choice," I said slowly. "You never were. You kissed her. I know. You slept with me while still tied to someone else." "I know," he whispered. "And I hate myself for it." The silence stretched. It wasn't angry, it was wounded. Exhausted. But still full of the ache we'd carried for years. "I lost Rahil," I said. "I know. And I'm sorry. You didn't deserve that." "No," I said firmly, "I didn't. And yet, I let you come back. Again." Zayan nodded, absorbing every blow like he knew he had it coming. "I used to think love was enough," I continued. "That if two people loved each other hard enough, they'd make it work. But I don't think that anymore." He swallowed. "Then what do you think love is?" I looked at him then, really looked. "Love is a choice. Every single day. A decision to stay, to fight, to show up. Not just when it's easy, but when it's hell." He leaned forward, eyes filled with quiet desperation. "Then let me choose you. Let me stay. Let me prove I can fight for this." I wanted to say yes. God, I did. But the truth was more complicated. "You don't get to choose me just because you're finally ready," I said, voice low. "You had chances, Zayan. So many. And every time you chose fear. You chose comfort. You chose other people." Tears welled up in his eyes, and he didn't blink them away. "I know," he said. "I was scared of what it meant. Of how real it felt with you. Of how much I had to lose. But losing you was worse." I paused, letting that sink in. "And what now?" I asked. "You want to start over?" "I want to try," he said. "With no lies. No half measures. Just us." For a moment, I saw it, a future. Morning coffees. Quiet touches. Arguments that ended with laughter instead of silence. A version of him who never ran again. But I also saw the wreckage behind us. "I need time," I said finally. "And space. I need to rebuild myself before I build anything with you." He looked crushed, but nodded. "I'll wait," he said. "Even if it takes forever." That night, I went home alone. No dramatic kiss. No final plea. Just quiet understanding and the echo of years we'd wasted. Weeks passed. I focused on myself. Therapy. Painting. Silence. And eventually, laughter. The pain dulled. My skin didn't sting when I heard his name anymore. He didn't chase me again. He let me breathe. Let me grow. And in that space, something unexpected happened. I began to trust him. Slowly. Cautiously. One day, I walked into a gallery to see one of my friend's exhibitions. In the center of the room was a painting. Of me and Zayan. Two silhouettes, backs touching but not turning. A thread of gold connecting our pinkies, fragile and stretched thin. The title? The Move. I laughed. I cried. I stood there for 10 minutes before sending him a text. "Come over. Let's talk." That night, when he knocked on my door, I opened it without hesitation. No games. No conditions. Just a boy who once waited years to make the first move. Finally choosing to move forward. Together.